The scream tore from her throat as the ground disappeared beneath her. And in that terrible moment when gravity claimed her, Deanna Montgomery knew she might die alone in this God-forsaken ravine with no one to even know where her body lay. The morning had started with such promise. Deanna had left the small mining town of Carlin, Nevada before dawn, determined to reach her sister's ranch 20 miles south before the November sun reached its peak. At 22 years old, she had made this journey twice before without incident, but this time her mare had stepped wrong on the rocky trail that wound along the ridge above Dry Creek Ravine. One moment they were moving steadily forward, the next the horse stumbled badly, shrieked in panic, and Deanna felt herself flying sideways as the saddle slipped. Her hands grasped at nothing but air as she tumbled down the steep embankment, rocks and brush tearing at her clothes and skin. She hit the bottom hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs, landing in a twisted heap among the stones and sage 20 feet below the trail. Pain exploded through her left ankle and ribs. Above her, she could hear her mare scrambling back onto the path, terrified whinnies echoing off the canyon walls. Then hoofbeats growing fainter. The horse was running, leaving her behind. Deanna tried to stand and immediately cried out. Her ankle gave way beneath her, sending fresh waves of agony up her leg. She collapsed back onto the rocky ground, breathing hard, trying not to panic. The ravine was deep and narrow here, hidden from the main trail by an outcropping of rock. Unless someone came looking specifically for her, no one would see her down here. And who would come looking? She had told her landlady she was leaving town, but Mrs. Peterson would not expect word from her for days at least. Her sister Sarah was not expecting her until this evening, and even then might simply assume Deanna had delayed her departure. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the cold. November in Nevada was unforgiving, and Deanna had dressed for riding, not for lying injured at the bottom of a ravine. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and tried to think clearly through the pain. She needed to somehow climb back up to the trail, but when she attempted to crawl toward the slope, her ankles screamed in protest, and her ribs ached with every breath. She made it perhaps 3 feet before she had to stop, tears of frustration and pain streaming down her face. Hours passed. The sun moved across the narrow strip of sky visible between the ravine walls. Deanna dozed fitfully, waking each time her body shifted and pain shot through her injuries. She called out several times, her voice echoing uselessly off the rocks. No one came. No one would come. She would die here, she thought with a strange detachment. They would find her bones eventually, perhaps in spring when the snows melted and some prospector wandered through. She must have fallen into true sleep then, because when she opened her eyes again the light had changed. Late afternoon sun slanted golden across the ravine, and there was a sound, hoofbeats. Someone on the trail above. Deanna struggled to sit up. "Help!" Her voice came out as a croak. She tried again, louder. "Help down here!" The hoofbeats stopped. She held her breath listening. Had they heard, or had they already moved on? Then a voice deep and male called down. "Hello, someone down there?" "Yes, I fell. I am injured. I cannot climb up." A pause, then the sound of someone dismounting. Boots on rock. A man appeared at the edge of the ravine, silhouetted against the bright sky behind him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a battered hat and range clothes dusty from the trail. "Hold on," he called down. "I am coming to get you." He disappeared from view for a moment, then she heard him working his way down the slope, dislodging small stones that clattered around her. He moved carefully but confidently, finding handholds and footholds she had not even seen. Within minutes, he had reached the bottom of the ravine. Up close, she could see him properly. He was perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair that needed cutting and several days' worth of stubble on his strong jaw. His eyes were a striking gray blue, sharp and assessing as they took in her condition. There was something solid about him, capable. The kind of man who knew how to survive in this harsh country. "How bad are you hurt?" He knelt beside her, his movements economical and sure. "My ankle," Deanna managed. "I think it is broken, and my ribs, I cannot walk." He nodded, already examining her ankle through her boot with surprisingly gentle hands. "That is swollen badly. We need to get you out of here and to a doctor. Can you put your arms around my neck? You cannot carry me up that slope. It is too steep." His mouth quirked slightly. "Madam, I have carried full-grown calves up steeper slopes than this. Now hold on tight." Before she could protest further, he had slipped one arm behind her back and the other under her knees, lifting her as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. The movement jostled her injuries and she gasped, gripping his shoulders. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "This is going to hurt some, but it is the only way." He began to climb, somehow managing the steep incline while carrying her full weight. Deanna kept her face pressed against his shoulder, trying not to cry out with every jarring step. She could feel the muscles in his arms and chest working, could hear his breathing grow heavier with exertion. But he never faltered, never lost his footing. It seemed impossible, but he made steady progress up the slope. When they finally reached the trail, he lowered her carefully to sit with her back against a boulder. He was breathing hard now, his shirt damp with sweat despite the cool air. "Thank you," Deanna said, her voice shaking. "I thought no one would come. I thought I would die down there." He met her eyes and something in his expression softened. "Lucky I came along when I did. This trail does not see much traffic this time of year." He moved to where his horse stood waiting, a sturdy buckskin gelding, and retrieved a canteen from his saddle. "Here, drink slow." The water was the most wonderful thing she had ever tasted. She had not realized how thirsty she was until the cool liquid touched her lips. She drank carefully, remembering his instruction, though she wanted to gulp it down. "What is your name?" he asked, taking the canteen back and capping it. "Diana Montgomery. I was traveling from Carlin to my sister's ranch south of here." "Lucas Young," he said. "I run cattle about 10 miles west of Carlin. I am heading back there now from Elko." He studied her ankle again, his brow furrowed. "That needs to be set properly and soon. Your sister's ranch, how far?" "Another 15 miles at least. But Carlin is only 5 miles back." He nodded decisively. "Carlin, then." "There is a doctor there, Henderson. He is capable enough. Can you ride if I hold you?" "My horse can carry us both that distance." "I think so. I do not seem to have much choice." Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "No, I suppose you do not." He moved to his horse, speaking softly to the animal as he checked the saddle. Then he came back to Diana and lifted her again with the same effortless strength. This time she was more prepared for the pain, gritting her teeth against it. He mounted with her in his arms, settling her sideways across his lap, one arm around her to hold her steady. "Let me know if this becomes unbearable," he said, his voice close to her ear. Then they were moving, the horse starting forward at a careful walk. Deanna leaned against Lucas's chest, too exhausted and hurting to care about propriety. He was warm and solid, and he had saved her life. That seemed more important than maintaining proper distance. The ride back to Carlin took well over an hour, the light fading to dusk around them. Lucas kept the horse to a steady pace, fast enough to make progress but slow enough not to jostle Deanna too badly. They did not speak much. Once he asked if she was managing all right, and she assured him she was. Another time he pointed out where her mare's tracks left the trail, heading north toward town. "She may have gone back to wherever you started from this morning," he said. Horses often do that. Someone in Carlin might have found her by now. That is something at least, Deanna murmured. She is a good mare. I would hate to lose her. As darkness fell, lights appeared ahead. Carlin was not much of a town, just a collection of buildings clustered along the railroad tracks, but it looked beautiful to Deanna at that moment. Lucas guided his horse directly to a small house near the edge of town, with a sign reading Dr. Henderson, physician, hanging from the porch. Lucas dismounted and carried Deanna to the door, kicking it firmly with his boot. After a moment, an older man with spectacles and thinning hair opened it, looking annoyed until he saw Diana's condition. "Bring her in," Dr. Henderson said immediately, standing aside. "What happened?" "Fell into the ravine at Dry Creek," Lucas explained, carrying Deanna into the examination room and laying her on the table there as the doctor directed. "Several hours ago, looks like. Ankle is badly swollen, and she says her ribs are hurt too." The doctor was already moving, lighting more lamps, washing his hands. "You can wait outside, Mr. Young, Lucas Young, and I will wait, thank you." His tone was polite but firm. He moved to lean against the wall, arms crossed. Dr. Henderson glanced at him, then at Deanna. She nodded slightly. The truth was she did not want Lucas to leave. He was the only familiar thing in this moment, strange as that seemed considering she had met him only hours ago. The examination was painful. The doctor cut away her boot, making her wince at the loss of good leather, but there was no help for it. Her ankle was swollen to twice its normal size, already turning spectacular shades of purple and black. Dr. Henderson probed it carefully while Deanna gripped the edges of the table and tried not to cry out. "Broken," he confirmed. "Clean break, though. It will heal if you stay off it and let it rest properly. Your ribs are bruised badly, but I do not think they are cracked. You are lucky, Miss Montgomery. That could have been much worse." "I know," she whispered. "If Mr. Young had not found me." "Well, he did," the doctor said briskly. "Now, this is going to hurt considerable. I need to set this bone properly before I can splint it." He was not exaggerating. Despite Lucas coming to hold her shoulders steady and Dr. Henderson's skill, the setting of the bone was agony. Deanna heard herself cry out, felt tears streaming down her face. Then it was over and the doctor was wrapping her ankle in bandages and splints, his movements quick and sure. "You need to keep this immobile for at least 6 weeks, he instructed. "And you should not be alone." "Do you have family here in Carlin?" Deanna shook her head, trying to clear it of the lingering pain fog. "I was staying at Mrs. Peterson's boarding house. I have a room there." "Mrs. Peterson is a good woman, but she is not equipped to care for someone who cannot walk. Is there anyone else?" "My sister Sarah, but she lives 15 miles south. I was traveling to her when this happened." Dr. Henderson frowned. "You cannot make that journey in this condition, not for several days at least, perhaps a week or more. The jostling would be very bad for your injuries." Deanna felt panic rising in her chest. She had paid Mrs. Peterson through the end of the week only, and her funds were limited. She could not afford to stay at the boarding house for weeks while she healed. But what other choice did she have? "She can stay at my place," Lucas said. Both Deanna and the doctor turned to stare at him. "Mr. Young, that would not be proper," Dr. Henderson began. "My sister Emma lives with me," Lucas continued, his expression matter of fact. "She is 20 years old and would serve as proper chaperone. We have room, and Emma knows how to tend to injuries. It would only be until Miss Montgomery is well enough to travel to her own sister's ranch." "I could not impose," Deanna protested, though her heart leaped at the offer. "You have already done so much." Lucas looked at her steadily, those gray-blue eyes serious. "You have no other good options, seems to me. My ranch is not fancy, but it is clean and comfortable." Emma would welcome another woman around the place, and I cannot leave you stranded here knowing you have nowhere proper to recover." "He has a point," Dr. Henderson said slowly. "With his sister there, it would be respectable enough. And truly, Miss Montgomery, you need looking after for at least the next few weeks. This is not an injury to take lightly." Diana looked between them, her practical nature warring with her pride. She hated being dependent on anyone, especially a man she had just met. But Lucas Young had already saved her life once today, and he was offering her a real solution when she had none of her own. And there was something in his eyes, something honest and straightforward that made her want to trust him. "If you are certain your sister would not mind," she said finally, "I could pay you something for room and board once I can access my funds." "We can discuss that later," Lucas said. "Right now, we need to get you settled somewhere you can rest properly. I will go fetch my horse and wagon from the livery. Can you give her something for the pain, Doc?" Dr. Henderson nodded, already moving to his medicine cabinet. "I will prepare some laudanum. It will help her sleep." Lucas touched the brim of his hat to Deanna. "I will be back shortly." After he left, Dr. Henderson gave Deanna a dose of medicine that tasted bitter and medicinal. Then he helped her into a more comfortable position on the examination table and draped a blanket over her. "Lucas Young is a good man," the doctor said, his tone conversational as he cleaned up his instruments. "Honest, hardworking. Came out here from Missouri about 5 years ago with his sister after their parents died. Built up his ranch from nothing. He has a reputation for being fair in his dealings and keeping his word." "Why are you telling me this?" Deanna asked, though the laudanum was already making her thoughts fuzzy around the edges. "Because you are about to put yourself in his care, and you should know the measure of the man." "You will be safe there, Miss Montgomery. That is what I am saying." Diana wanted to respond, but the medicine was pulling her down into darkness. She had time only to murmur something that might have been thanks before sleep claimed her. She woke to the sensation of being lifted again. Lucas's voice, soft and close. "Easy now. I have got you." She was being carried out into the cold night air, then settled carefully into the bed of a wagon on what felt like blankets and hay. More blankets were tucked around her. Lucas's face appeared above her in the moonlight. "It is about a 2-hour drive to the ranch," he said quietly. "Try to sleep. I will go as smooth as I can." She wanted to thank him, wanted to say something about his kindness, but the laudanum still had its grip on her, and she could manage only a small nod before darkness took her again. When Deanna woke properly, it was to find herself in a strange bed in a strange room. Morning light streamed through white curtains at the window. The room was small but clean, with simple furniture and a colorful quilt over her. Her ankle throbbed with a deep, persistent ache. The door opened and a young woman entered carrying a tray. She had the same dark hair as Lucas and a similar directness to her gaze, though her features were softer, prettier. "This must be Emma." "Oh, you are awake," the woman said, her face brightening. "I was hoping you would sleep longer, but Lucas said you might wake early. I am Emma Young. You are in our house in the guest room. Do you remember some of it?" Deanna said, pushing herself up to sit. Her ribs protested the movement. "Your brother brought me here last night." "I am Deanna Montgomery. Thank you for taking me in." "Nonsense, we could not do anything else." Emma set the tray on the bedside table. "I brought you some breakfast, eggs and bread and coffee. You should eat something. Dr. Henderson said you need to keep your strength up." Dr. Henderson was here. "Lucas rode back to town early this morning to fetch him, to make sure we had proper instructions for your care. The doctor changed your bandages and left medicine for the pain. He said you are healing as well as can be expected." Emma settled herself on the edge of the bed, her manner friendly and open. "Now eat, and then I will help you with whatever you need. We have a chamber pot under the bed, and I can bring water for washing." Deanna felt her face heat at the intimate practicality of this, but Emma's matter-of-fact tone made it easier to accept. She ate the breakfast, discovering she was ravenous, while Emma chattered about the ranch and how they managed things. "It is just Lucas and me here, plus our hired hand Caleb who stays in the bunkhouse. We run about 300 head of cattle. It is hard work but honest work, and the ranch does well enough. Lucas is out checking the north pasture today, but he will be back by supper. He made me promise to take good care of you." "He has been very kind," Deanna said carefully. "More than kind. I owe him my life." Emma smiled. "Lucas is like that. Once he decides something is his responsibility, he sees it through no matter what. When our parents died and everyone said I should go live with our aunt in St. Louis, Lucas would not hear of it. He said we were family and we would stay together. He was only 21, barely more than a boy himself, but he made it work." Her expression turned thoughtful. "He does not often bring people home, though. You must have made an impression." Diana did not know what to say to that. She barely knew Lucas Young. He had rescued her and brought her here out of basic human decency, surely nothing more. But something in Emma's knowing smile made her wonder. The days that followed fell into a routine. Emma cared for Deanna with cheerful efficiency, bringing meals, helping her wash and dress, changing her bandages. Lucas appeared at breakfast and supper, always asking how she was feeling if she needed anything. He was unfailingly polite, almost formal, but Deanna found herself watching for him, listening for his footsteps on the porch. He was a man of few words, she learned. He spoke only when he had something to say, never filling silence with chatter the way some men did. But when he did speak, his words were thoughtful, considered, and he had a quiet sense of humor that caught her by surprise, little dry observations that made her laugh. In the evenings, he would sometimes sit in the main room reading while Emma sewed and Deanna worked on mending some of Emma's clothes, insisting she needed to make herself useful. Those hours had a peaceful quality, the three of them companionable in the lamplight. One night, about a week after Deanna had arrived, Emma went to bed early with a headache, leaving Deanna and Lucas alone. Deanna was seated on the sofa with her splinted leg propped on cushions. Lucas sat in the armchair across from her, ostensibly reading a newspaper, but she had noticed he had been on the same page for quite some time. "Can I ask you something?" Deanna said finally. Lucas looked up. "Of course. Why did you bring me here?" "You could have just taken me back to town and left me at the boarding house. You had already saved my life. You owed me nothing more." He was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "Would you believe me if I said I do not fully know? That is not an answer. No, I suppose it is not." He set the newspaper aside. "When I found you down in that ravine, hurt and scared but still keeping your head, still trying to be brave about it, something just settled in me. A feeling that I could not just leave you to manage on your own. That you were my responsibility at least until you were well again." He met her eyes. "I know that probably sounds strange." "A little," Deanna admitted, "but I am grateful for it, more grateful than I can properly express." "You do not need to be grateful. Any decent person would have done the same." "I am not sure that is true. Many people would have done the minimum and considered their duty discharged. You have done far more than that." He looked uncomfortable with her gratitude, she noticed. He shifted in his chair, cleared his throat. "Tell me about your sister, the one you were traveling to see." Deanna accepted the change of subject. "Sarah. She is 3 years older than me. She married a rancher named Thomas Clark about 4 years ago and moved to his place south of Carlin. They have 2 children now, a boy and a girl. I was going to help her for a few weeks. She just had the baby and wrote that she could use an extra pair of hands. And before that, where were you living? In Carlin, as you know. Before that, California. Our parents died 2 years ago in an influenza outbreak. Sarah was already married by then, but I had no other family. I worked as a seamstress in Sacramento for a time, but the work was irregular. When Sarah wrote asking if I would consider moving closer to her, I decided to come to Nevada. I had been working at the general store in Carlin, saving money. She paused. I suppose I will need to send word to the store that I cannot return to work immediately, and I should write to Sarah, let her know what happened. I can ride into town tomorrow and send those messages for you, Lucas offered. Also, I asked around about your mare. A farmer north of town found her and turned her over to the livery. She is being cared for there. I can settle the fees and bring her back here if you would like. Diana felt tears prick her eyes at this casual kindness. Thank you. Yes, I would like that very much. It is no trouble. He stood, stretching. I should turn in. Morning comes early. Do you need anything before I go to bed? No, Emma has made sure I have everything. Good night, Lucas. Good night, Diana. She watched him go, troubled by the warmth that spread through her chest at the way he said her name. She barely knew this man. She should not be feeling this way about him. And yet she could not deny that something was growing between them, tentative and unspoken but real nonetheless. The second week brought better weather and improved mobility. Diana could now move around with the help of a crutch Lucas had fashioned for her, though Dr. Henderson had been firm that she was not to put weight on her injured ankle yet. She spent more time in the main rooms of the house, sometimes sitting on the porch when the sun was out, watching the ranch operations. Lucas ran a good operation, she could see that. Everything was neat and well maintained. The cattle looked healthy, the horses well cared for. Caleb, the hired hand, was a quiet man in his 40s who worked hard and spoke little. The ranch might not be large or fancy, but it was solid, built to last. Emma, it turned out, was courting a young man named Peter who worked at the general store in Carlin. He came out to visit on Sunday afternoon, a sandy-haired fellow with an earnest manner and obvious devotion to Emma. Watching them together, seeing the way they looked at each other, made Diana feel a strange pang of longing. That evening, after Peter had left and Emma had gone to tend to the chickens, Diana was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Lucas came to stand beside her. Emma tells me Peter is going to ask her to marry him soon, he said quietly. She told me the same thing. She is very happy. Yes, he was quiet for a moment. I will miss her when she goes. The house will be lonely. Diana glanced up at him. His profile was strong against the red sky, his expression distant. You could marry, she said, then immediately wished she had not. It was too personal, too forward. But Lucas only smiled slightly. I could. I suppose I have been too busy building this place to think much about it, and the right woman never seemed to come along. He looked down at her then, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. Until recently, perhaps. Her heart was suddenly beating very fast. Lucas. I know it is too soon to speak of such things, he said, his voice low. You have been here only 2 weeks. You are still healing. I should not have said anything, but I find I am not good at pretending. From that first day when I found you in the ravine, I felt something. A connection. And these past weeks, having you here, talking with you in the evenings, watching you be strong and brave and kind, that feeling has only grown stronger. Diana did not know what to say. Her mind was spinning. She had felt it too, that connection, but she had told herself it was only gratitude, only the natural warmth one felt towards someone who had saved them. But it was more than that, was it not? It was the way her day felt brighter when he came in from the range. The way she found herself listening for his voice, his footsteps. The way her heart lifted when he smiled at her. "I feel it too," she whispered. "But I do not know if it is real or if it is just the circumstance. You saved me, you have cared for me. Perhaps I am only feeling grateful and confusing that with something else." "Perhaps," he agreed. "Or perhaps we were meant to find each other in exactly the way we did. I do not claim to understand fate or providence, but I know my own heart. And my heart tells me you are someone special, Deanna Montgomery, someone worth taking a chance on." He reached down and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm and strong around hers. "I am not asking you for an answer now. I know you need time to heal, to think clearly. But I wanted you to know how I feel. And when you are well enough to travel to your sister's ranch, if you decide you want to go and not come back, I will understand. I will not hold you here. But I hope, very much, that you might choose to stay." Deanna looked up at him, this good man who had crashed into her life in the most unexpected way. She thought about how safe she felt here, how right it seemed to sit on this porch and watch the Nevada sunset, how complete the house felt with her in it, how her future, which had seemed so uncertain just weeks ago, suddenly felt like it might hold something wonderful. "I would like time," she said slowly. "Not because I doubt my feelings, but because I want to be sure they are real. That I am not just grasping at security because I was frightened and hurt." "I understand," Lucas said. "Take all the time you need." But he did not let go of her hand, and she did not pull away. They sat like that in the gathering darkness, hands linked, watching the stars come out over the Nevada range. The third week brought a letter from Sarah, full of concern and relief that Deanna was alive and recovering. She offered to have Thomas come fetch Deanna immediately, but Deanna wrote back saying she needed a bit more time before attempting the journey. She told herself it was because Dr. Henderson had advised another 2 weeks before she traveled, which was true. But she knew it was also because she was not ready to leave Lucas yet, not ready to face what leaving might mean. Emma knew something had shifted between Diana and her brother. She was far too perceptive to miss the way they looked at each other now. The gentle touches when Lucas helped Deanna to the table or carried her outside to sit in the sunshine. She was pleased, Deanna could tell, though she tried to hide her knowing smiles. "You are good for him," Emma said one afternoon as she and Deanna shelled peas on the porch. "I have never seen Lucas like this. He has always been so serious, so focused on the ranch. But lately he laughs more. He seems lighter somehow." "He has been good for me too," Deanna admitted. "I feel like I can breathe here, like I can be myself. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Emma was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "I hope you will stay after you are well, not just for Lucas, though I admit I would love to see him happy, but for you too. You fit here, Deanna. You belong." Deanna felt tears threaten at the simple acceptance in Emma's words. She had been drifting for so long, ever since her parents died, living in other people's spaces, doing other people's work, never quite finding a place that felt like home. But here, on this rough ranch in the middle of Nevada with a man she had known less than a month and his kind-hearted sister, she felt like she had finally found where she was meant to be. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "I am just afraid. What if it is too fast? What if we barely know each other and are making a terrible mistake?" "Then you will figure it out together," Emma said practically. "That is what people who love each other do. They figure things out, but I do not think you are making a mistake. I think you and Lucas are the best thing that could have happened to each other." That night, Lucas asked Deanna to take a walk with him. She was getting around fairly well now with her crutch, and Dr. Henderson had said gentle exercise would be good for her. They walked slowly around the ranch yard in the moonlight, Lucas staying close beside her in case she needed support. "I have been thinking," he said as they paused near the corral fence. About what you said about us not really knowing each other. You are right. We have had unusual circumstances and things have moved fast, so I thought perhaps we should fix that. What do you mean? I mean, let us take time to truly know each other. Tell me about your life, your dreams, what you want for your future. Let me tell you about mine. Let us court properly, the way we would have if we had met under normal circumstances. And then, when you are certain of your feelings, when you know for sure that this is what you want, we can talk about what comes next. Diana felt something tight in her chest loosen. I would like that. Very much. So they began to court in their own quiet way. Lucas told her about growing up in Missouri, about coming west with Emma after their parents' deaths, about the backbreaking work of building the ranch, the lean years when he was not sure they would make it, the satisfaction of finally turning a profit and knowing the place was secure. He told her about his dreams of expanding the herd, maybe breeding horses in addition to cattle, about wanting a family someday, children who would inherit the land he had worked so hard to build. Diana told him about her childhood in California, about her mother who had taught her to sew, and her father who had worked in a bank and read her stories every night, about the grief of losing them both, the loneliness of the years after, about her dreams of having her own home someday, a place where she could put down roots and belong, about wanting children too, a family to love and care for. They discovered they both loved reading, though books were precious and scarce. They both preferred coffee to tea, autumn to spring. They both believed in hard work and honesty and keeping your word. They both wanted quiet lives filled with simple pleasures rather than fame or fortune. But they learned their differences too. Lucas was a morning person, up before dawn, while Diana preferred to sleep late when possible. He liked quiet and solitude, while she craved conversation and connection. He was cautious and measured, thinking things through carefully, while she tended to act on instinct. But these differences did not divide them. Instead, they complemented each other, balanced each other. 4 weeks after the accident, Dr. Henderson pronounced Diana healed enough to travel if she chose to. Her ankle was still weak and would be for some time, but the bone had set properly, and she could walk on it with only a slight limp. Another month and you will be almost back to normal, he said as he removed the last of the splints. Though I would not recommend any more riding along ravine edges. Diana laughed. I will try to avoid that. After the doctor left, she sat on the porch feeling strange. She could leave now. She could go to Sarah's ranch, meet her niece and nephew, start the life she had planned before the accident. Nothing was keeping her here, except everything was keeping her here. Her heart was keeping her here. Lucas came home early that evening as if he had sensed this was an important day. He found Diana on the porch and sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. The doctor says you are well, he said. It was not a question. Yes, he says I can travel whenever I wish. And do you wish to travel to your sister's ranch, I mean? Diana took a deep breath. This was the moment. The choice she had been circling around for weeks. She could be cautious, protect her heart, take the safe path, or she could be brave. She could choose love. I wish to visit Sarah, she said carefully. I have not seen her in months and I want to meet the new baby. But I do not wish to stay there. I wish to come back here, if you want me to come back. Lucas turned to her, his eyes intense. Diana, I have wanted you to stay from the moment I carried you up out of that ravine. These past weeks, having you here, they have been the happiest of my life. I love you. I think I started loving you that first day, and every day since has only made me more certain. I love you too, Diana said, the words feeling right and true. I know it has been fast. I know some people will say it is too soon, but I have never been more sure of anything. You are a good man, Lucas Young, the best man I have ever known, and I want to build a life with you here on this ranch if you will have me." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle. "I will have you, today, tomorrow, forever. Will you marry me, Deanna Montgomery?" "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I will marry you." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Deanna felt like she was flying again, but this time someone was there to catch her. This time she was safe. They were married 6 weeks later in the little church in Carlin. Sarah came with her whole family, delighted by this unexpected development. Emma stood as Diana's maid of honor, radiant with happiness for her brother. Peter was Lucas's best man, and he and Emma announced their own engagement at the wedding breakfast, adding to the joy of the day. Deanna wore a simple dress of pale blue that Emma had helped her sew, and Lucas wore his best suit. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her in front of everyone, not caring who saw, and Diana felt her heart might burst with happiness. The ranch became their world. Deanna threw herself into ranch life, learning to manage the house and the accounts, tending the garden and the chickens. Lucas taught her to ride again, patient and encouraging when she was nervous near ravines. They worked side by side, building their future together. Emma married Peter that spring and moved to Carlin, though she visited often. Deanna missed having another woman in the house, but she also relished the privacy, the chance to be alone with Lucas. They were still learning each other, still discovering new things every day. Some days were hard, especially when money was tight or the weather was bad or they had their first real argument about how to manage the breeding stock. But they always talked it through. They always remembered what they had chosen, what they meant to each other. Their first child came 15 months after they were married. A boy with Lucas's dark hair and Diana's green eyes. They named him James after Lucas's father. Deanna held him in her arms and marveled at the miracle of it all, that she had nearly died in that ravine, that Lucas had found her. That from such a terrifying accident had come this beautiful life. "What are you thinking?" Lucas asked, sitting on the edge of the bed and looking down at his wife and son. "I am thinking how strange life is," Deanna said softly. "How one terrible moment can lead to such joy. If I had not fallen that day, if my horse had not stumbled, I would never have met you. I would never have come here. We would not have this." She gestured to the baby, to the room around them, to everything they had built together. Lucas leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I think about that sometimes too, about how lucky I am that I decided to take the Dry Creek Trail that day instead of the main road, about how differently things could have gone. But they did not. I found you. We found each other, and I thank God for it every single day." "So do I," Deanna whispered. "So do I." The years unfolded full and rich. They had 3 more children, 2 girls and another boy. The ranch prospered and grew. They added on to the house, building more rooms for their growing family. They faced hard times too, droughts and harsh winters, cattle lost to disease, money troubles. But they faced them together, and that made all the difference. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Lucas took Deanna back to the ravine where he had found her. It was a warm November day, much like the day of the accident. They stood at the edge looking down, Deanna's hand firmly in Lucas's. "It seems so long ago," Deanna said, "like it happened to different people." "In a way it did," Lucas replied. "We are not the same people we were then. We have grown together, changed together. Do you ever regret it? Taking me in, tying yourself to a woman you barely knew," he turned to her, his face serious. "Never, not once. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Deanna. You and our children, this life we built. I would do it all again in a heartbeat." She leaned against him, feeling the solid strength that had always been there. "I love you, Lucas Young. I love you too, Deanna Young." They rode home together as the sun set over the Nevada range. back to the ranch house that was full of the sounds of their children playing, back to the life they had built from chance and choice and love. Deanna thought about that girl she had been, falling into darkness, terrified and alone. She could never have imagined then what was waiting on the other side of that fall. Could never have guessed that the worst moment of her life would lead to the very best. Years later, when their children were grown with families of their own, when the ranch had passed to James and his wife, Diana and Lucas would sit on the porch in the evenings just as they had all those years ago. They would hold hands and watch the sunset and remember. Remember the day they met, the weeks of falling in love, the moment they chose each other despite everything reasonable saying it was too fast, too soon, too uncertain. "I still think about it sometimes," Deanna said one evening when she was 65 and Lucas 68, when their hair was gray and their hands marked by decades of work. "That day in the ravine, how scared I was, how sure I was that I would die there. And instead you found life," Lucas said softly. "We both did." "Yes," Deanna agreed, squeezing his hand. "Yes, we did." They had built a good life together there on that Nevada ranch. Not an easy life, not one without sorrows and struggles, but a good one. A life full of love and family and purpose. A life worth the risks they had taken, the leap of faith they had made. When Lucas died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 73, Deanna held his hand and told him one more time that she loved him, that falling into that ravine had been the luckiest accident of her life because it had led her to him. She liked to think he heard her, that he understood. Deanna lived another 5 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She never left the ranch, never wanted to. This was where her heart lived, where her story had truly begun. When her time came, she went peacefully, a smile on her face, and those who knew her said it looked like she was greeting someone she had been waiting for. The ranch stayed in the family for generations after, each child and grandchild learning the story of how it all began. How Deanna had fallen into a ravine, and Lucas had been the only one who came to help. How they had fallen in love despite logic and caution, trusting their hearts instead of their fears. How from tragedy had come triumph, from accident had come purpose, from a chance meeting had come a love that lasted beyond lifetimes. It became a family legend, the kind of story told to children and grandchildren, whispered by couples on their wedding days. A reminder that sometimes the best things in life come when we least expect them. That love can bloom in the strangest places. That being brave enough to choose each other, even when it seems too soon or too fast or too uncertain, can lead to something beautiful and enduring and absolutely worth the risk. And on quiet evenings when the wind blew across the Nevada range, if you stood in just the right spot near the old ranch house, you could almost hear it. The echo of laughter, the murmur of voices, the sound of two people who had found each other against all odds and held on tight, building a life and a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. The story of Deanna and Lucas, who proved that sometimes falling is just another way of finding your way home.